DPH placement team. We're standing here today at the Behavioral Health Center because Mayor London Breed and Department of Public Health officials have decided to close beds. In 1987, Dianne Feinstein was the mayor. She and 76% of the voters of San Francisco allocated $26 million to build this site. They built it so that people with mental illness could live in their hometown and be served and treated with dignity and professionalism. And now today, Department of Public Health officials are ignoring that mandate and saying, let's close these beds and change them out for a shelter. That's not fair. Clients should not have to go to Antioch or Modesto or Oroville or Napa for treatment. Not when we have this facility right here at home.
All right, so I'm just going to tell you guys what's going on here. It's straight bullshit. This is what the city's doing. They're trying to fake it and make it look like they're doing things for folks. They're churning people through the system in order to juke their stats so they can say at the end of the day they serve so many people. But what they do, they put them in and they pushed them out. They put them in, they pushed them out. They put them in, they pushed it out. This has fucking got to stop. This place right here is our only boarded care facility that's publicly run for people who are acute. It is permanent. It is permanent. Okay, this is exactly what we need in our system. Exactly what we need. And they're talking about taking out 41 beds and then having people go into a nav center where they come in and they go back out. They come in, they go back out. We are literally in this crisis right now because we have lost over 2,000 boarded care beds since the 1970s. This is a valuable resource to us. We have to fight like hell to hold on to these beds, and we won't take any bullshit. All right? I'm here representing the Treatment on Demand Coalition, and we have been fighting hard to expand, to make a system that actually works for people. And we've got City Hall working against us. That's right. So I want to call out some community partners that are part of Treatment on Demand that are here. The National Alliance for the Mentally Ill are here. The Mental Health Association are here. The folks that are working on these mental health issues on a day-to-day basis, they're saying hell no to closing this spot. Thank you very much.
I'm Deborah Gabel, IFPTE Local 21.
So you're here today. We're in front of a healthcare center for people who have disabilities, mental disabilities, and what are your concerns about what is happening here at this center?
We're concerned about the administration's forced eviction of patients with no plan and no care. It's totally wrong and immoral. With all the resources that we have as a city, we should not be doing that to patients who are the most vulnerable in our communities.
And many of them are seniors or fragile. What will happen if they're forced into these navigation centers?
There's no plan for them, and it's totally egregious and not safe, and we're very, very concerned.
Now, there's been a hiring shortage of hiring professional staff, public workers to staff this. What's behind that?
You know, we think that that the city needs to resource our staff appropriately, and there's a shortage because the workers are very skilled and they're not compensated appropriately, so that impacts this care that they're able to give because they don't have enough staff. So we're very concerned about the number of staff, but we're also, this is an unnecessary unilateral move. There was no discussions with us, and
I thought they're supposed to collaborate with you or negotiate with you.
Yes, they're legally required to negotiate with us, and they have not. Yes.
An unfair labor practice?
Potentially, yes.
And are you concerned about there are hundreds of millions of dollars going to the homeless, going to nonprofit centers that pay workers less, they're not public workers, they're incentivizing basically outsourcing and privatization of public jobs in San Francisco?
We're concerned primarily with the care that's being given. City workers know their patients, they're invested in their patients, they're invested in the community, and we want to make sure that that is able to continue.
Do you think there should be a charter amendment banning outsourcing and privatization of public jobs in San Francisco?
I think that's an interesting idea.
My name is Judith Klain, and I'm the mother of a son who's been at the ARF for almost 2 years now. My son was diagnosed 2.5 years ago with schizophrenia, and the first year of his diagnosis he moved to 7 different placements. He could not tolerate some of these programs that are very prescriptive. The ARF was the first place that he was able to stay, and it's provided him a home where he could be stabilized. The last thing we need is to be cutting more beds for people who are mentally ill.
That's right.
What we need is more beds. This last few days, the residents there have been through incredible anxiety and panic attacks and fear. And whether my son is allowed to stay or not, this is not the way that people who are already feeling a lot of things should have to go through.
Hi, I'm Sarah Larson. I'm a mental health treatment specialist. I work at the Behavioral Health Center in San Francisco. And I've been working there since literally before it opened. And I've never seen anything like this where they're giving away permanent beds to temporary beds for people who aren't getting any kind of treatment.
And the people here that you've been treating, helping, what would happen to them if they're moved into navigation centers?
Well, the people who live here right now are all stabilized. I mean, many of them go out occasionally, but if they were on the street in the community, they would be costing the city a lot of money. And if they move, they will be destabilized. And
why would they do that? Why would the city do that?
I have no idea. They've been giving us conflicting reasons. We've been told that it's so hard to staff. I mean, that's what I read in an article, and then because they're not rehiring staff where we are. And
is that because they don't want public workers? They would rather go to nonprofits?
Yes, I think that they don't want to, because the workers here have been told that we're on probation and we can't take in any more residents. So we've had a lot of open beds, even though there are many, many people who are waiting to be housed at this facility.
So there's a backlog of people waiting to get in this facility.
Backlog of people, that's right. But everybody's getting a different story. We've gotten nothing in writing. The administration is not meeting with the unions to discuss job displacement. It's like they just want to ram it through and hope nobody notices.
And there's a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars that are going into the navigation centers, the Healthcare 360, who are staffed by nonprofits who make less money. You think there's an incentive for the city to get rid of public workers and put it into the nonprofit sector?
Well, I do, because I mean, I'm a professional, I'm a clinician, I'm work here because of my knowledge and working with people with mental illness. The people that work for Baker Places, I mean, are making like $17.50 an hour.
How do you live on that in San Francisco?
Well, you don't, and it's really hard to hire for them. They're understaffed too, from what I understand. So I don't see how they're doing this, but it seems like it may have been in the works for a long time. First, they took our food service, our cafeteria workers, and they moved all of our custodial staff over to the hospital. And I don't feel like we've been getting the full story on any of this. And
now, if some of these people are pushed out, they're seniors, they're very fragile. Could this be a death sentence for some of these people if they're pushed out in the street or to these navigation centers?
It could. It could. It could be incredibly disruptive at the best. You know, at the worst, I don't want to think about it.
I mean, for seniors, disabled, mentally ill, to be on the streets or pushed into a new environment.
That's right. And, you know, we do need centers of the kind that they have, but you don't want a high concentration of users for, what do they call it, this center, because they are people who are not expected to curtail their drug use or any kind of their behaviors that they have on the street. It's basically a garage for people for a limited period of time while they consider their options, I guess you would say. But they aren't expected to go to groups or look at any kind of recovery. It's just a place for them to be, and it's a very difficult neighborhood because we already have trouble with security. And we're in a kind of a remote little corner here at San Francisco General, and it's not going to be safer because of the population. It's going to be tougher on our frail elderly people who live here.
And these navigation centers, you say that they're kind of garages. Where's the public housing for people who need it in San Francisco?
Well, I don't know, but old Laguna Honda is still sitting there empty, except for some nice luxury offices, I understand. That was formerly a 1,200 plus bed facility.
So it could be used for mentally ill
And in fact, it has a wonderful buffer around it, so the neighborhood people shouldn't be complaining because it's been there for over 100 years, and there shouldn't be any problem with using it. And I don't understand why they're not using one of the city's most famous and established resources.
Okay, thank you.
Which agency are you?
My name is Pam Fisher. I've been involved with NAMI for 20 plus years. I have a mentally ill son, and I've been fighting this battle the entire time that we've lived in San Francisco. Funds are never adequate, and when it's budget crunch time, it's beds and services for the mentally ill have been cut and cut and cut. And we've reached a point now where we're seeing the results of that on our streets, where you have mentally ill, homeless individuals who are basically in your face. And
they need to have services and be in.
They absolutely need to have services. They need to be housed, and you don't play a shell game of taking 20 people from here, putting them basically in a navigation center so that people in the navigation center can move here. It seems like a kind of sly game of trying to take your eye off the ball and fool you of what's really happening.
London Breed has been confronted with people in San Francisco complaining about mentally ill people on the streets.
Absolutely, it's front and center. It's in the newspaper. It's on the TV news. The Chronicle has been featuring stories almost daily of outrageous things being witnessed on the streets.
You think this is not going to help? It's going to hurt the situation?
This is not going to help. This is not a solution. You don't take gravely ill individuals who have been well cared for here, adjusted to this place, and then move them someplace totally different. And as you said, many of them are seniors. The ability to adjust decreases the older the individual becomes. So no, I think this is a very wrong approach.
My name's Meg Brasileiro. I'm a psych nurse. I work on the 7th floor in the hospital. And they are doing some very bad math here in the sense that they're shutting down long-term housing and trading it for short-term housing, which is insane. It's just going to come round to bite them in the ass.
What's driving this? What's going on here? Why wouldn't they be hiring more staff?
Well, here's my theory. I don't know if I'm right or not, but they have to put the navigation center somewhere, right? They wanted to put one in the Embarcadero, but the neighbors screamed. And they're probably running out of neighborhoods where people aren't going to scream about it.
What about Laguna Honda?
Well, that's a good possibility. It's also a good possibility in the hospital itself. There's all these empty units.
Empty units in the hospital.
There's at least one that I know of, and they already serve that population. Up on the 7th floor, 7A is closed. It's empty.
Now, it seems there's a lot of money, hundreds of millions of dollars going to nonprofits, Healthcare 360, the navigation centers. These workers are being, is that a concern that you have?
That's a big concern that I have. They're subcontracting out to non-union employees so they can pay less. I used to work for one. I got paid about half of what I get paid here.
For doing the same work?
For doing the same work. For doing even harder work because they give the nonprofits the really difficult patients that are medically compromised, psychiatrically compromised, the most difficult ones, and leave the easier ones to the San Francisco General employees.
Do you think there should be a ban or a charter amendment banning outsourcing and privatization of public jobs? Because it seems like these workers who are being hired at nonprofits, where the money is going now, flowing, are basically don't have livable wages. Somebody said they were $17.50 an hour. How do you live in San Francisco for that?
You can't. I mean, my son does, cleanup for that amount. No, it's not enough money, and there should be a charter amendment. I don't know who would sponsor it. I'm sure there's plenty of people that would be willing to.
Well, maybe the families of these patients and the unions here.
Well, there you go. The families of the patients. That's right.
Want to protect
the unions. Some of the unions could.
So the union, are you in SEIU? 1021. In the negotiations that you had, I know some members were saying that there should be an issue of outsourcing privatization in the contract to stop it. What happened?
It got dropped. You know, I'm not. It was one thing among many that got dropped. I mean, you can only push for so much.
It seems like that the incentivization is to get people to do the same work for less pay.
Well,
and that's
of course, that's the bottom line. That's the whole thing. You know, they wouldn't do it otherwise. There would be no reason for them to do it otherwise. Yeah.
And the other issue is housing. Is there working class housing for people in San Francisco?
No, of course not. No. I mean, a studio going for $3,000 a month, you know, if not more, depending on the neighborhood. No.
And thousands of more new condos coming on. They want to sell the Balboa Reservoir to Avalon for, $1 million condos.
I mean, I make decent money as a registered nurse, and I can't live here. I don't live in the city. Most nurses I know do not live in the city. They commute from all kinds of way far out, Hercules, Pinole, Vallejo. You know, nobody can afford to live here.
Well, you have more billionaires in San Francisco, Zuckerberg, who has a home here, than any place else in the world in San Francisco per person. Why are we going for their money to build working class housing for the public workers and for the people who need it?
Well, I want Zuckerberg's name off the hospital, for one thing. That's a different subject, I know, but...
privatization.
Exactly.
Tell us about the sign you made and how you feel.
Yes.
Well, our director gave us 60-day notice, like out of the blue. I mean, it's kind of unreal. It's like, oh, I have 2 months to think about moving, you know, and I don't think it's fair. You know, each and every one of us up there at all 3 tiers of 1, 2, 3 floors of mental illness. I mean, mental illness is a real thing. And, you know, having to live with it, it is a job in itself, and it affects family members and whatever. But there's good counseling there at the ARF. The staff are great, you know, and none of us are favored over any of us. None is not favored over another one there. And I'm just so very thankful of that. And I'm thankful today to be alive. And God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Jennifer Cummings.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I am a psychiatrist with an intensive case management program. I treat clients with severe mental illness. I'm proud to say that many of them have done well. The ARF and many residential facilities like it throughout the city have been absolutely crucial in ensuring that many of my most symptomatic clients have achieved safety and stability. The ARF and many other board and cares ensure that clients get 3 meals a day, have clean and safe spaces to stay, have people to talk to, and to ensure that they take their much needed medications as directed. Right now, the city is actually approaching a state of crisis because the ARF and many other board and cares are being closed down at an alarming rate. We currently have a shortage. Why are we closing this one? Okay. Like the supervisor said, I have clients who have been on the inpatient psychiatric unit for months. I have heard of patients being on there for over a year because there is no safe discharge plan for them. The only adequate care would be at a boarding care, and there are none available. Why then is the city closing the ARF? I have clients who are in the community now. They are at risk. They would benefit greatly from being able to live in a boarding care. They are clients who are too disorganized to take their medications regularly, have difficulty getting 3 meals a day, and are very vulnerable to predation, and psychiatric and medical decompensation. They have been on waiting lists for boarding care for months. Why is the city closing the ARF? I asked the city to do the right thing and provide proper funding for all of San Francisco's boarding cares. I ask that the city do the right thing and ensure that those at risk have a stable place to go. I ask that the city do the right thing and not destabilize the clients who are living right here and who've lived here for years. I ask that the city not destroy long-term solutions in favor of rotating door housing and political expediency.
Right.
Thank you.
So as Dr. Cummings and as Supervisor Ronan both stated, we are in a housing crisis. In 2013, we contracted with 999 beds for this level of care, 999 boarding care beds. Today, we have 601. That's a 40% decrease in just a few short years.
That's right.
If we close the beds here, that means we're gonna lose even more. But these aren't the only beds. Right now, I have a 6-bed home that's in an emergency closure because they lost their license. I have another 18-bed home that's going to be closing soon because they can't afford to operate. On top of that, I have 2 other homes, one with 6 and one with 4 beds that are closing as we speak. That's 40 beds. 40 beds are closing on top of the ones that the city is opting to change into shelters. It does not make sense. Add to that that right now, 46 beds are empty in this facility. 46 beds, 23 for elders and 23 for adults. So when you talk about patients languishing in the inpatient unit, there is no reason for it. The city says that it's a staffing problem, but in San Francisco, the unemployment rate is 2.4%. People can work, but in the Department of Public Health, the unemployment rate is more than 20%. That is a pervasive problem, and our clients should not be shouldering the burden of our lax management. Our clients deserve better care. So I'm going to bring up 2 very strong caregivers, W.D. Flint and Amy Wong, to come and tell you some more.
My name is Amy Wong. I am actually a Local 21 union member. And I am really distraught right now, and because I've been working with a lot of these folks here, and what we want to do is we want to actually keep our folks stabilized, right? And so we have folks on our facility who have not been able to move down to the lower of care, and that's preventing them from the quality of life. Right. And we, you know, we want to have some quality of life freedom, but because our folks are being held up, because some of the beds that are like Jennifer and Hillary, you know, Supervisor Hillary's been mentioning that the beds are closing and we have no beds. And so now the beds have been open for over a year or more. So why? And then all of a sudden now you're saying that the beds are open for temporary homeless shelter. That doesn't make sense to me. So really, we really need to stand together and really fight this and get our people who have chronic mentally ill illnesses, and to just give them back their home, their permanent home. Yes. It is their permanent home. Why are we moving it out and give it to a temporary housing? It's not right, okay? And as a mental health treatment specialist, I am very concerned about the welfare of our clients, and we want to make them, you know, stabilize. We want them to be stable, and we just want to have them have proper care, because they are in treatment now. So if you displace them, they're going to be no more treatment.
Are you worried that some of these patients here might end up in dire straits, dead, even if they're put out?
Good question. Absolutely, absolutely. And we've seen people who are out there have no treatment, and then they get, you know, misunderstood. If they are in treatment, they're stable. And if they're stable, they're part of the community. And everybody should be part of the community.
That's right. That's right.
They are human. They are part of our community. Okay? So we need to just kind of support not shutting down the ARF.
That's right. Save the ARF.
Save the ARF.
Save the ARF.
My name is Eddie Steele. I live in the Mission. And I'm here because I'm an activist, but also I struggle with mental illness. So I've had long struggles with depression and anxiety. I was in the hospital this spring. I haven't hired enough staff to do the work that's required for the people that would be living and using those beds.
Is that because they're public workers? They want nonprofit workers to do this work?
Well, I think that's I guess that might be part of it. They want to outsource the work to the boarding care homes where people get paid less. But also those boarding care homes are having problems probably because of just gentrification. Everything's getting so much more expensive. But I guess the thing that strikes me the most is that you're taking from one good service to give to another probably good service. And when you have people fighting over limited resources, and you have all this struggle, and the reason that there are limited resources is political. There's no reason why there shouldn't be enough beds for people that need long-term mental health care, psychiatric care, and enough places for people to live that need housing. I mean, there's lots of empty housing in San Francisco, so it just shows you that the public sector would rather have people cannibalize each other than push hard for the resources we really need. I just want to say one more thing, is that okay? So we're here at Zuckerberg, San Francisco General Hospital, and that person, he has enough money probably for millions, if not tens of millions of lifetimes already. And then that money's untouchable. So it's like there's plenty of money to provide the services that people need, but it's being hoarded, and that's a big problem. And hopefully this rally today will bring some awareness to that.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
My name is W.D. Flint. I'm a nurse of 33 years, and I'm a senior shop steward here at the ARF. And basically, I had something unusual happen. My nursing license expires on July 31st, and so I started to try and renew my license in June, right after my birthday on the 5th of June. I was unable to be recognized by the system. My license number, my name, nothing was evident. I could do nothing online, and I've been in that system 33 years. So consequently, I kept on filing, I kept on trying to get in, and later I contacted the Attorney General, Mr. Brasileiro. They checked on it, gave me documents, and indicated that I could file and prosecute if necessary.
Why would you have to prosecute? Is that, you think you've been retaliated against for being a shop steward?
Yes, I know for a fact I was retaliated against. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented.
How did they retaliate against you?
They retaliated against me in the workplace by lowering my, I'm not able to give medication now, even though I'm a medication nurse. And there has been no reason given for it. They said it's an investigation. No investigation, no notification, nothing in writing. And then the thing with my licensure. And the strange thing, I drove to Sacramento to renew my license. I paid the $225, which they said they would not accept a card. You had to have cash. Well, I had the cash on me. I know when I see a snake in the grass. I had the cash, I paid for it, and then they would not accept the receipt. They told me until it shows on screen, I still would not be able to come in here and work. I lost 6 days of work. 6 days. Now, the thing is that once the Attorney General became involved, then things started to change. But just before that, the 31st my license expires, on the 1st of August, I received a letter from Human Resources with the city indicating that I was unqualified for my position and that within 30 days they're going to move me. This was a plan that went wrong.
And who was in charge of that? Who was the DPH? Who did this to you?
Okay, this is DPH, but I believe the roots of this situation emanates here. As someone here, and I don't want to name anyone without having any proof, but I will get the proof. I'm going to find that person that started this, as well as the person in Sacramento that wiped me from the database. That is illegal.
Is this part of union busting that's going on in San Francisco?
It seems to be part of union busting. It's also part of a type of heavy-handed authority that is practiced here. Many times you see different staff members that are insulted by administration openly. They're openly threatened. We were threatened not to tell any of the patients.
Verbal abuse?
Verbal abuse. Verbal abuse. Bullying. Okay, intimidation. All of these things are very prevalent here. And so now what has happened, I've talked to people to let them know these things are illegal. They got a union behind them. Now they're starting to rise up. That's the only way things are going to change. That's what I have to say.
How long have you worked here?
I have worked here for about a year. I've been in the DPH system for 20 years. I started in 1999. And this is a system-wide problem as far as the bullying, as far as the forcing the way by administration. Many people have suffered this, but they've been afraid to speak out until now. And I'm one of those that's going to stand out, and there are many behind me that want to give their stories as well. attempted to be bullied into signing a false document, a fake document, a document that was blanked by the Director of Nurses, Ingrid Thompson here.
So Ingrid Thompson actually wanted you to sign a document without any information?
Absolutely. It was supposedly just a policy document, but she put a codicil, a blank paper on top of it where I was to sign, and indicated that if I did not sign, she would tell the director. Well, I refused to sign it, and then what she did, she relieved me of my duties to where I could not pass medications. Now I'm a nurse that works in a mental health capacity, a tremendous waste because I have been a nurse for a long time, and I like to think I'm pretty damn good. But the thing is, there's much retaliation here. Now, I have written this up, and I'll be glad to send you a copy of the documents. And supposedly now...
How does that affect the patients here when somebody's bullied, the staff are being bullied?
It comes out in lessened care. It lessens the quality of care, and it leaves the patients without someone to go to, because clearly, if administration said that you're not to say anything, most people are afraid for their job. They got mortgages, they got lives outside here, and they don't want to go against a system that's going to hurt them and their families. But by the same token, these things are illegal, and people need to be told and stood up.
Well, should she be criminally prosecuted? Should these administrators here be held accountable for illegal activities?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm W.D. Flint, and I am working on that seriously.
My name's Hillary Ronan, and I'm a supervisor in San Francisco in District 9, Mission, Bernal Heights, and the Portola neighborhoods of San Francisco.
And people here are concerned. I've talked to some of them about the patients here being put in these navigation centers, and they're seniors, they have severe disabilities. What do you think about what's happening here?
Well, I am deeply concerned about what's happening here. I have slightly different reasons. As you may know, I have proposed a ballot measure that's going to be on the ballot in March of next year, together with Supervisor Matt Haney, called Mental Health SF. And what Mental Health SF does is it acknowledges that we have a broken mental health care system and substance use disorder system in San Francisco, and that we need fundamental structural change for people to get the care that they need and that they deserve, and for all San Franciscans to stop seeing the tragedy that's taking place on our streets every day in this city. And we were originally going to put this measure on the November ballot, but decided to delay it till March to give the opportunity to work with the mayor's office and the Department of Public Health, hear their concerns, and make sure that we've created the strongest possible measure. What my first problem with what's happening here is, despite the fact that we've been in detailed, regular conversations with DPH, I learned about this closure 2 days ago from the workers, not from the mayor's office and not from the department itself. Nobody on the Board of Supervisors, in fact, was informed that this is taking place. Number two, aside from the existing residents that are here, what we have been saying at the Board of Supervisors over and over, what the frontline workers have been saying over and over, is there are not enough beds to accommodate the people with the most severe illnesses. These are the beds that accommodate them. And DPH has not been filling them, and then I think purposefully not filling them in order to then have an excuse to close them and turn them into temporary beds, which we do also need, but which we could build anywhere, and which don't take care of the need of the people on the street that you and I see every single day, who are scantily clothed, extremely dirty, speaking to themselves clearly in dire straits, and potentially risking death on our streets. Those are the people that should be in these beds already. Why aren't they there? And then finally I will say, and this part is a small part, but it's an irony that really befuddles my brain. The mayor and Supervisor Madelman just spent months fighting to allow a new circumstance to conserve people. I had many concerns about it, but I ultimately voted in favor of it because they told me that people will have and get the services that they so desperately need immediately.
This is at the navigation center.
No. The people that are the illest on our street, that are so deeply mentally ill, that need to be conserved because they are a danger to themselves or others, the type and level of service and bed that they need are the ones that DPH is shutting down today. And To me, to expand the possibilities of conserving people and then to shut down the beds that we need once we conserve them is completely contradictory to one another and completely nonsensical.
Many of these navigation centers, there's a lot of money, $300 million that is going to the homeless and to centers to help people in San Francisco, streets, people who have no homes. Those are filled by nonprofits that make 30–40% less than public workers. Do you think that the privatization and outsourcing of public jobs is partly what is happening here at the...
I do not. I actually do not think that that is the problem. There is a hiring problem that they are not taking seriously and not hiring fast enough to fill the civil service positions that they need. But what
Healthcare 360, which is a nonprofit, is going to be doing the same work as public workers here at San Francisco General. Isn't that basically outsourcing public jobs to a nonprofit operation where the people are paid less, don't get the same benefits of public workers?
Yeah, that is a very good point and could be a motivation. I don't know. What concerns me is that it is the smoke and mirrors game that DPH is constantly playing by pretending to expand beds in the system, but really expanding beds that are more temporary in nature, and then at the same time taking away beds that are the ones that are most needed for the people that you and I see on the streets every day. And this smoke and game smear to shuffling people in and out of these short-term beds isn't helping anybody. In fact, it's making the situation worse. And what this will directly translate into is us seeing more people on the streets every day than we do now.
And many of these are seniors here. They're very fragile, they have disabilities. Is it the case that if they're pushed out here, they may die, they may end up dead because they can't live on the streets in San Francisco?
Without a doubt, Steve, that's what's going to happen. What's going to happen is what we already see every single day right now, and what Mental Health SF is trying to fix is going to be made worse by this decision. And it's outrageous, and we're going to do everything we can to fight it.
I'm Gus Vallejo. I'm president of IFPTE. Gus Vallejo, president of IFPTE Local 21, and also a resident here, born and raised in San Francisco. And as a resident, as a member of a union, I'm here to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Local 1021. What the city's doing is just egregious. I mean, they're going to take permanent housing and put people on the street, frankly. This is not what San Francisco is about. No, it's not. I'm someone who has seen the work that the General has done in our community. I donate to the General Hospital Fund because I've seen what they do. This is not the General Hospital that I donate to. That's right. They're really going to put people on the street. So we want our support. We want to let the city know that this is not.